Hi everyone, it's Leela Hell. Today we're going to go ahead and review my Russian edition of the Thoth Tarot. It's a very popular tarot deck. I would say that there are three main lines of tradition in the tarot. One of them being the Marseille, then we have the Thoth, and then we have the Rider-Waite, which is of course the most popular tarot deck there is out there. And let's be fair here, it's Rider-Waite-Smith if we want to credit the artist, Pixie. So, the Thoth Tarot is kind of a difficult one to talk about because there's already extensive material on it, and well, really, what can be said about the Thoth Tarot that hasn't already been said? This edition is actually pretty nice because of the fact you don't get white borders around the artwork in the back, how it used to be back in the day. It's kind of in a pocket size, so it's not that huge meditation cardstock. And then the front has the lime green edges that you would get in the large size that people refer to as the greeny Thoth. And there's a big debate on how you even pronounce the word. Is it Thoth? Is it Thoth? To each their own. And you call your deck as you see fit. I really love these backs with no white border around it because I think that even the pocket version nowadays has the white border around it, and that just takes away from the experience of a tarot deck. We like our cards borderless most of the time. So something that I really like about this deck is the fact that I don't get keywords. And that's something that always bothered me about the standard Thoth Tarot, the fact that it has keywords from Crowley himself. And of course, I can't tell which suit it is because the suit name is also in Russian. But I don't mind. I mean, I'm already familiar with this tarot deck. It's not a problem. But the cardstock is nice and thin, and for small hands it's really convenient because you could shuffle it any way that you want to. It's not really too big. And I like the greenish tint on the images. Some of them just look brighter. Some of them look more muted. We're talking about the Emperor. He's not as red as he should be. But the blues and the greens, they really stand out. And I think it's the Seven of Pentacles, Seven of Coins, that is particularly stunning in this deck because of how nice and blue it is. Unlike the standard version where you kind of get like a muted thing. And when it comes down to it, it really doesn't matter which version you have because it's still the tarot deck. But when you get down into personal preferences and collection, principles of collection and different printings that exist, people tend to have their preference for each deck. Now, I've been using this one a lot during work, and I really love it because of the fact that it translates feelings through color. I'm really feeling color lately, and the psychology of color, and what color stands for, what its archetype is. It's great. It's really relevant to the life of the querent. See, this one looks very nice. And it's easy to shuffle, so I don't take too much time, which is something that I always have to take into consideration while working. It's a deck that scares a lot of people. I hear stories about how the devil from this deck, which I already showed, freaks people out, and how like these images are so powerful and they incite fear in some people. I don't understand why that is. I mean, it's just paper, really. There's nothing really magical about paper, and the magic is really in the reader, right? But no, if you go online on the internet, you'll see that a lot of people are very intimidated by this tarot deck. And they feel like they're not ready because there's so much symbolism and Thelema and Golden Dawn and Kabbalah. And well, yeah, it could be a daunting task if you really want to get so technical and textbook about it. But really, the tarot's meant to be read through feeling, through intuition, through what you pick up from it. So it doesn't necessarily have to become this whole academic venture for you. You can definitely enjoy this deck for its qualities. It's very strong. It reads very well. Okay, here we go. It just looks so much nicer in blue. This lighting isn't doing it justice, but when it's out on the table, it's very deep and it's very beautiful. I definitely get a different color than I see on the screen. But I can see also why people take it so seriously, and they kind of leave it as the Holy Grail. They feel like Aleister Crowley, the person behind it, is a very controversial figure, and of course he's very misunderstood. There's a video series by Lon Milo DuQuette. I think it's called like The Alchemy of Sexuality and Magic or something like that. Alchemy of Sex and Magic. And it's a 5-hour video where Lon Milo DuQuette goes through the Thoth Tarot and he explains the symbols, and he talks about Aleister Crowley as somebody who would know him best. So I definitely recommend watching that video if you want to get familiarized and if you want to get past how intimidating the Thoth Tarot can be. I'm actually going to dig up the name and publish it for you so you can go on and find the video on your own. But I watched it, and it helped me see the Thoth Tarot in a new way. I watched it years ago, though. We're talking about 2010. And it made me appreciate this deck. I actually liked this one. And when I say like, it's kind of like... But I clicked with this one before I clicked with the standard Rider-Waite. Before then, I always had different renditions of the Rider-Waite because I tried to avoid it. I thought it was ugly and plastic. But of course, we're talking about the standard edition with those ugly played backs. Anyhow, I resonated with this one first. And I found it very colorful, and I found that when you lay the cards out, the colors and the elements, they just kind of like, they point at each other in a sense. They react to each other, depending on which cards you get. I have an example in mind, but it's kind of hard to thumb through the whole deck to find them. But it's just, some of the images, they really relate to one another. Because of shape, because of color, because of the elements within and what they're doing with one another, and how they contrast from the next card. It's very interesting. And once you get used to all the differences from the Rider-Waite Tarot, you really just open up to a new experience, which I think is quite nice. Okay, so now, well, let's try it. So we have these two cards, actually these three cards. And you see here, these two, they're in the same kind of like color gradations. You have the deep reds, the yellows, whereas this one has more green. But here in the middle we see a curve, the same curve that we see here in the horns. Whereas here we have structure. So what can be said about this? I see it as a family, the queen, the king, and the daughter between them. Something that came out of their union together. And they're both structured leaders. They're both strong, structured leaders. With a more creative child, more like an artist. So you start seeing the differences. And you kind of start seeing where the artists got their traits from the mother. I mean, I'm just pulling it out of my sleeve here, but there's connections that can be made from the illustrations. And some of them are, of course, quite powerful. Like this Ten of Swords. You see that? Unmistakably, it means pain. It means you got stabbed in the back, betrayal, the red of the swords and the blood dripping down. And then all these little squiggles at the bottom. It just looks like the psyche and how thought is broken down. Probably you look at the book and it'll be like, lady, you're crazy. That's actually like this really sacred symbol of whatever I don't know about. But you don't really need the textbook structure that a lot of people attribute to this deck. You can just take it as what it is. A book that is reassembled to give you further insight into your life. That's really what the tarot is. It's such a powerful tool for self-empowerment. Okay, this is a moon card, and it has Egyptian vibe to it. The very first time I saw this card, I was disappointed because I wanted a beautiful blue sky with a big looming silver moon and like purple and blue and stars and the jackal and the dog. But you know what? I've come to accept this, and I've come to see why it was chosen to be what it was chosen to be, with reflection and the mirrors and the Egyptians and how they manipulated light and angles, their power to scribe, and the fact that we have Anubis and another entity, kind of like a gateway to the madness, to the beyond, to the other realm. There's a lot that can be said, and you have the scarab with what I believe to be the sun reflecting to the moon. So there's a lot going on there, probably much more in the textbook that you can draw from it. But it's very nice. It's very nice, and once you get acquainted to the deck, this one especially, this is actually the one I wanted to use. So let's see if we can find it and talk about it. Please excuse me for a second. The cards just work together, and I like that about them. I like it when a deck has very bright colors. I don't really care about whether or not it's busy or this or that. I need color. If it's going to be black and white, then that's okay too. But color tells me a lot lately. I'm really vibing with it. So here we have two cards that are related. They're in the same suit. And they're the 6 and the 9. And it's a progression, right? But like the 3 is like a pyramid. So I see it in a different way. I had this come up for me in a reading earlier this week, this week. And I saw these two cards in the spread, and it showed a progression in the person's life that I was reading for. And I said to them, no, you definitely have possibilities that are coming on. I think you just, whatever it is that I told them relevant to their life. But they look related. You see these rays coming out. You see them here too. It looks like a progression of something through color and through shape. This doesn't have people. You don't see faces. I mean, you could if you're meditating and it takes you somewhere, right? But there's no faces. There's no scene. It's kind of like a pip card, but it's not, because it has feeling. And once you bring in numbers and you associate things, it says a lot to you. So I really love that about it. What else could be said about this deck? There's a lot of secrets in it, and they're very blatant. They're kind of like out there. The thing is that I feel like that could be why people feel aversion to this deck, because it's so out there and it's so unapologetic about being out there that people just don't really like it. I mean, if you want to talk about out there, look at the Devil card really clearly. It's very sexual, is it not? But at the same time, I mean, I didn't see this for the longest time. I loved this Devil card. I thought it was the coolest thing. I mean, look at that goat. That's amazing. But then I noticed these things, like people being caught here. And the devil is actually this guy right here, according to Lon Milo DuQuette's video. So that was interesting. This would end up being Capricorn, but the devil is actually right here at the top, about to come out. So there's a lot of little details in here that might be easy to miss. But when I finally saw what was going on behind the goat, it was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? It's really graphic. But you know, like, no, I don't even see it when I'm doing readings, usually, unless it's a relevant subject. And there's many more kind of Easter egg things going on in this tarot deck. See the foreground, how it changes up with the background. There's a lot of serial things going on here, and that would make sense for me to see in a tarot deck. So I like the geometric kind of things going on with the shapes, and definitely the color. It's a really big thing. And I'm going to leave some cards to the imagination, even though you can find this deck online, and it's very popular. I started working with this deck rather late, as in a serious work deck. I always saw it as the kind of deck that you kind of had up in the background. Death card following me around. That you kind of just had up in the background to inspire you while you were working with another deck. That's how I've always used it, or leaving cards up in my little altar space. It's a deck to be used for magic. These cards can be used as talismans, or just, you know, you could actually make something, sew something into the card, have it be part of your ritual because of the fact that it's so powerful and it evokes the feeling of high magic practicing. So it's definitely very good for meditation and for use of magic. Now there's also Hebrew letters in the major arcana cards, as well as the zodiac attributes, if I'm not mistaken. So that, you know, if you really want to buckle down and do the textbook thing, you can do that too. But really, you do what you want. You approach a deck the way that you feel you need to, and then you allow your relationship with your deck to evolve according to where you are at in your path. And that's perfectly fine. So I hope you enjoyed my review of the Thoth Tarot, Russian edition. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.